But one, for as long as anyone could remember, Earth had been watched. Not by gods or ghosts, but by beings from far beyond the stars. They called themselves the Galactic Council, a union of ancient species who ruled the spiral arms with quiet authority and cold logic. To them, humanity was little more than a footnote in the great cosmic ledger, noisy, divided, and hopelessly behind in technology. They had scanned Earth's cities, intercepted its radio chatter, and logged its wars. They saw no threat, only potential, raw materials, water, and a stable star system ripe for harvesting. Earth's governments knew about the Watchers. A secret treaty, signed in the dead of night decades ago, forbade any open contact or resistance. In exchange, the Council promised not to interfere, so long as humanity stayed in its place. Most world leaders accepted this quietly. After all, what could Earth do against fleets that bent space and time like paper? So the people lived on, unaware that their planet was already marked for future ownership. But not everyone obeyed. Deep in the rocky hills of Colorado, hidden beneath layers of reinforced concrete and electromagnetic shielding, a small team worked in silence. Their facility had no name on any map. Its funding came from black budgets buried under layers of false accounting. Here Dr. Carl Dixon spent his days hunched over glowing screens, his glasses fogged from hours of focus. Beside him, Lisa Moran adjusted a humming coil of alien alloy with steady hands. She never spoke much, but her eyes missed nothing. They were part of Project Echo, a program so secret that even most generals didn't know it existed. 32 years ago, a small alien scout ship had crashed in the Nevada desert during a sandstorm. It wasn't supposed to happen. The Council's vessels never malfunctioned, but this one did, and it carried something extraordinary, a damaged but intact quantum resonance core. For years, scientists tried and failed to understand it. Then Carl and Lisa cracked the code. The core didn't just power the ship, it folded space around it, allowing near-instant travel without leaving a trace. Better yet, it could be replicated. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt it, not to explore, not to trade, but to defend. While the world argued over borders and budgets, Project Echo grew. Underground factories assembled components. Retired pilots trained in simulators built from salvaged alien navigation logs. Engineers rewrote physics textbooks based on what the core revealed. Earth wasn't as helpless as the Council believed. It was just waiting. Meanwhile, aboard the Council's orbital observation post circling Pluto, Emissary Kalar filed his monthly report. His species, the Vorthon, valued precision over emotion. His words were clinical, detached. Terran development remained stagnant. No signs of FTL capability. Societal cohesion low. Military technology primitive. Recommendation: maintain observation status. Annexation window opens in 6 cycles. He sent the message without a second thought. To him, Earth was like a garden left untended, soon to be cleared and replanted by proper hands. He did not know that deep beneath Colorado, a human woman had just powered up the first full-scale echo drive. He did not see the test run that sent a drone to Alpha Centauri and back in under 3 hours, undetected by any Council sensor. He certainly did not imagine that the primitive species he dismissed was already building warships in hidden lunar craters. Back on Earth, life went on as usual. Children went to school. Farmers harvested crops. News channels debated politics. But in secure bunkers and encrypted channels, a new kind of unity was forming. Leaders from rival nations met in secret. Setting aside old grudges, they knew what was coming. The Council's patience wouldn't last forever, and when the time came, Earth would need more than hope. It would need teeth. Carl often stayed late, staring at star maps pinned to his wall. Lisa would bring him coffee, black and bitter, and stand beside him in silence. One night she asked, "Do you think they'll listen if we warn them?" "They won't," Carl replied. "They see us as animals in a cage. Animals don't negotiate. They obey or get put down. Then we make sure they can't put us down," she said. And so they worked harder. The first prototype warship, the Odyssey, was completed in a cavern beneath the moon's south pole. Sleek, dark, and shaped like a blade, it carried no national flags, only a simple emblem, a blue circle with a single white star. Inside, Captain Ryan Ellis ran final diagnostics. He had once flown fighter jets over the Pacific. Now he trained to fly between stars. Beside him, Maya Rodriguez monitored energy flows with calm focus. She had joined the project after losing her family in a Council-sanctioned resource survey that leveled a coastal city under the guise of atmospheric study. She didn't speak of it often, but every line of code she wrote carried their memory. On Earth, President Diane Foster reviewed the countdown. 6 cycles, according to intercepted council transmissions, meant roughly 18 months. Time was running out. She authorized the final phase of Project Echo, full mobilization. Not just defense, deterrence, strike capability. If the council came to take Earth, they would find it ready, not with pleas but with power. In the final weeks before the council's deadline, Carl and Lisa made one last breakthrough. They discovered that the Echo Drive could do more than hide a ship. It could disrupt the council's own communication networks by emitting a counter-frequency. It was like shouting into a silent room. The effect was temporary, but it was enough. Enough to blind them. Enough to confuse them. Enough to give Earth a fighting chance. No one celebrated. There was no time. Instead, they prepared. And then, one quiet morning, sensors at the edge of the solar system lit up. A fleet had entered the Oort cloud. Not scouts. Not observers, warships, hundreds of them. Their formation was clear. This was not a visit. It was an occupation. The council had come early. In Colorado, Carl looked at Lisa. She nodded. Without a word, they activated the global alert. Across hidden bases on the moon and orbit and deep under the oceans, Project Echo shifted from readiness to response. The Odyssey powered up its core. Captain Ellis gave the order to launch. Maya Rodriguez locked onto the lead council vessel. And for the first time in human history, Earth did not wait to be spoken to. It prepared to speak back in a language the galaxy had not expected from it. The language of force. The council never expected Earth to strike back, but they were about to learn that silence does not always mean weakness. Sometimes it means preparation. Part 2. The council fleet hung at the edge of the solar system like a storm cloud waiting to break. Their ships were vast, gleaming with polished alloys and humming with energy that bent light around them. They sent a single message, broadcast on every frequency Earth could receive. It was not a request. It was a command. Surrender your sovereignty. Dismantle your weapons. Prepare for integration. Refusal will result in pacification. Most of Earth's population heard the message on news feeds, radios, and emergency alerts. Panic spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond, but the old divisions still lingered. Some leaders wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to flee. Only a few knew the truth, that Earth was not as defenseless as it seemed. Deep in the Lunar Command Center, President Diane Foster stood before a wall of live feeds. Her face was calm, but her hands were clenched. Beside her, generals and scientists waited in silence. She turned to Captain Ryan Ellis, who had just arrived from the Odyssey's final systems check. "Are we ready?" she asked. "As ready as we'll ever be," he replied. The plan was simple because it had to be. Earth had only 3 Echo-class warships, the Odyssey, the Vanguard, and the Sentinel. Each was smaller than a single council cruiser, but faster, quieter, and armed with weapons the council had never seen. Their phase disruptor cannons could tear through energy, shields by vibrating matter at a subatomic frequency, something Lisa Moran had discovered by accident. While testing resonance harmonics, the goal was not to destroy the entire fleet. That was impossible. The goal was to strike first, strike hard, and make the council understand that humanity was not prey. On board the Odyssey, Maya Rodriguez monitored the enemy formation. Her fingers danced over the console, feeding data into the ship's tactical core. "They're not even scanning for stealth signatures," she said. "They think we're blind mice in a cage." "Then let's show them we've grown teeth," Ryan said. The Odyssey activated its Echo Drive. Space around it shimmered like heat over desert sand, then it vanished. Not by jumping to another point, but by folding into the quantum noise between dimensions. To council sensors, it simply ceased to exist. Moments later, the Odyssey reappeared inside the council fleet's inner perimeter, just meters from the command vessel's communication array. Maya fired the disruptor. A pulse of silver-blue energy lanced out, not with fire or explosion, but with silence. The array cracked apart like glass under pressure, its circuits unraveling at the molecular level. All council-wide communications went dark. Confusion erupted. Orders couldn't be relayed. Squadrons drifted out of formation. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was blind and deaf in hostile space. Back on Earth, Diane Foster stepped onto a global broadcast channel. Her image appeared on every screen. from handheld devices to public billboards. She wore no uniform, only a dark suit and a small pin shaped like the Earth. To the people of our world, she began, and to the beings watching from the stars, we are not your subjects. We are not your resources. We built this world with our hands, our dreams, and our sacrifices, and we will defend it. She paused, then added, we are Earth and we fight back. The message spread faster than the Council could contain it. On Mars Colony 7, miners disabled their surveillance drones and raised the human flag. On Titan, a research outpost cut its data link to the Council and began transmitting tactical data to Lunar Command. Even among the lesser species in the Council's alliance, murmurs began. Some had long resented the Council's arrogance. Now they saw something new. Courage. Meanwhile, the Vanguard and Sentinel launched from hidden docks beneath the ice of Europa. Led by Commander Jake Harris and Lieutenant Nina Cole, they targeted supply tenders and sensor relays. Using the Echo Drive's cloaking effect, they struck and vanished before the enemy could respond. Council ships fired blindly into empty space, wasting energy and ammunition. On the bridge of the lead Council vessel, Emissary Kalar stared at his dead comms panel in disbelief. How? He demanded. How did they bypass our detection grids? Their technology is centuries behind. Unless it isn't, whispered his science officer, a young Zenthari named Trell. What if they've been hiding their progress? Kalar refused to believe it. But the evidence was undeniable. Human ships moved like ghosts. Their weapons ignored shielding. Their tactics were unpredictable, wild even, but effective. They didn't fight like a military. They fought like survivors. On Earth, volunteers flooded recruitment centers, not just soldiers but engineers, medics, pilots, and programmers. Universities turned into training grounds. Factories ran day and night. For the first time in generations, the world felt united, not by fear but by purpose. Carl Dixon and Lisa Moran worked nonstop in Colorado, refining the Echo network. They linked every human outpost, ship, and drone into a single responsive web. Commands could be issued from Mars and executed near Neptune in seconds. It wasn't just technology, it was trust. And trust was something the Council had never understood. As the days passed, the Council's frustration grew. They launched drone swarms to hunt the human ships, but the Echo Drive rendered them useless. They tried jamming frequencies, but human signals used quantum entanglement, unblockable, untraceable. They even sent a peace envoy, hoping to trick Earth into lowering its guard, but Diane Foster saw through it. She let the envoy land on the moon, then showed them footage of the Odyssey disabling a Council warship with a single shot. Tell your masters, she said, that we don't negotiate at gunpoint. The envoy left in silence. By the end of the second week, the Council fleet had lost 12 ships, not destroyed but disabled, stranded, or captured. Human forces had taken prisoners, treated them humanely, and released them with a message: leave or face worse. Kalar finally requested an emergency session with the High Council. His report was no longer confident. It was shaken. Terrans are not primitive, he admitted. They have concealed capabilities far beyond our estimates. Continuing this operation may result in unacceptable losses. But the Council's pride was wounded. Backing down would make them look weak to their own member species. So they doubled down. More ships were ordered from the core worlds. A full invasion plan was drafted. They would bombard Earth from orbit if necessary. They still didn't understand. Humanity wasn't waiting for them to come. Humanity was already among them. And the real fight had only just begun. Part 3. The Galactic Council had never faced doubt before. Their rule was built on certainty, on the belief that order came from strength and strength came from unity. But now whispers moved through their grand chambers like cold wind through stone halls. How could a species with no FTL travel, no energy shields, no Council recognition, disable 12 of their finest warships without losing a single vessel of their own? The question gnawed at them, especially at Emissary Kalar, who had once declared humanity harmless. On the Council's central world of Zelthar, the High Chamber convened an emergency session. Towering figures from a dozen species stood in silence as battle logs played on the great holodome. They watched as human ships blinked in and out of existence, striking supply lines near Titan, jamming sensor nets near Uranus, and even rescuing enslaved laborers from a mining outpost on Ceres. The footage showed no grand speeches, no banners, just quiet efficiency and ruthless precision. Counselor Varel of the Zenthari slammed a three-fingered fist on the obsidian table. Kalar misled us. He called them docile. He called them stagnant. And now they humiliate us in our own fleet lanes. Kalar stood rigid, his scales dull with shame. I reported what I observed. They hid their progress. No species has ever done that. Then they are not like other species, said Elder Majan, the oldest voice in the chamber, and we treated them as if they were. But pride ran deep. The council could not admit error. Instead, they voted to escalate. Reinforcements were dispatched from the inner arm. Orbital siege platforms were activated. A new directive was issued: pacify Earth by any means. If the humans would not submit, they would be broken. Meanwhile, Earth did not wait. On Mars, the red dust swirled around newly built orbital foundries. Using asteroid-mined metals and reverse-engineered alien alloys, human engineers began mass-producing echo cores. Each core took only days to assemble now. Thanks to Lisa Moran's automated replication matrix, the Vanguard and Sentinel returned to dock, their hulls scorched but intact, and were quickly refitted with upgraded weapons. A fourth ship, the Defiant, rolled out of its lunar bay ahead of schedule. Captain Ryan Ellis stood on the observation deck of Lunar Command, watching the Defiant's first test flight. Beside him, Maya Rodriguez handed him a data slate. Jake Harris just confirmed the Titan depot is clear. We've got full control of the outer system supply chain. Good, Ryan said. They'll expect us to defend Earth. Let's make them chase us instead. The new strategy was bold. Instead of hunkering down, human forces would strike deep into Council territory, not to conquer but to disrupt, to prove that the Council's reach had limits and Earth was no longer within them. Lieutenant Jake Harris led the first raid. His target was a major Council fuel depot orbiting Enceladus. Using stolen access codes from a captured data core, his team slipped past automated defenses. They planted resonance charges on the main storage tanks, devices designed not to explode but to destabilize the exotic matter inside. When triggered, the fuel would decay into harmless plasma, useless for warp drives or weapons. The mission took 17 minutes. By the time Council patrols arrived, Jake and his crew were already gone. Their ship folded into quantum silence. The depot was not destroyed, but it was dead. Dozens of Council ships suddenly found themselves stranded without refuel options. Back on Earth, President Diane Foster met with representatives from every continent. For the first time, all major powers agreed on a single war plan. Resources were pooled. Intelligence was shared instantly through the Echo network. Even former rivals sent their best pilots to train under Ryan Ellis. The world was no longer a collection of nations. It was one people, defending one home. In Colorado, Carl Dixon and Lisa Moran made another breakthrough. They discovered that the Echo Drive could be tuned to emit a low-frequency pulse that scrambled Council comms across an entire sector. It was like throwing static into a calm pond. The ripples disrupted everything. They called it the White Noise Protocol. Maya Rodriguez tested it during a skirmish near Neptune. Within seconds, 5 Council ships lost coordination and collided in the dark. But the real shift came from beyond human space. Encrypted signals began arriving from unknown sources. Some came from minor Council species, those who had long resented the dominance of the Vorthan and Zenthari. Others came from independent colonies tired of being taxed and ignored. One message, signed only as Observer 7, contained detailed schematics of a Council dreadnought's weak points. Another offered safe harbor in a hidden asteroid belt if human ships needed repairs. At first, Diane Foster was cautious. It could be a trap. But Carl argued that the galaxy was larger than the Council's version of it. They think they control everything, he said. But control is an illusion. There are always cracks. We just have to find them. So Earth began to listen, and in doing so, it found allies it never knew it had. On the Council's side, unity was crumbling. Species that once obeyed without question now asked why they were dying for a war against a planet they'd never seen. Rumors spread that the humans treated prisoners with dignity, gave medical aid to wounded enemies, and never targeted civilians. This was not the behavior of savages. It was the behavior of a civilization that understood strength did not require cruelty. Kalar requested permission to open direct talks. He was denied. Instead, he was reassigned to logistics, a quiet exile for his failure. As the weeks passed, human strikes grew bolder. The Odyssey disabled a Council sensor array near Pluto, blinding their early warning system. The Sentinel rescued a group of enslaved Khazari workers from a mining barge and returned them to their homeworld, earning Earth a new friend in the process. Even civilian ships joined the effort. Freighters rerouted to carry supplies. Scientists volunteered to decode alien tech, and schoolchildren built signal jammers from scavenged parts. The Council had expected a quick surrender. Instead, they found a species that turned every disadvantage into a weapon. No fleet? Build a stealth one. No allies? Earn them through action. No history in galactic affairs? Make one worth remembering. And still, Earth did not strike at the Council's heart. It did not seek revenge. It sought respect. But the Council did not understand respect, only power. So they prepared their final move, a full armada, led by the newly arrived warlord Zorvak, known for burning rebellious worlds to ash. His fleet would arrive in 30 days. He promised to end the human problem forever. Earth heard the warning, and for the first time its leaders smiled, because they were ready. Part 4. The Council's final fleet arrived not with warning but with fury. Warlord Zorvak's armada blotted out the stars near Jupiter, a wall of metal and fire stretching across the void. His ships were larger, darker and bristling with weapons designed to crack planets open like eggs. He had burned a dozen rebellious systems before, and he saw no reason Earth would be different. To him, humans were insects, loud, brief, and easily crushed. But Earth was not waiting behind walls. It was already in motion. Captain Ryan Ellis stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Around him, the crew moved with calm urgency. Maya Rodriguez monitored energy signatures, her voice steady as she reported enemy positions. They're forming a siege ring around Jupiter. Standard pacification pattern. They think we'll hide in the inner system. Let them think it, Ryan said. The human plan was not to meet force with force. It was to turn the Council's strength against itself. Weeks earlier, engineers had seeded Saturn's rings with thousands of tiny resonance charges, devices no bigger than a hand, hidden among the ice and rock. Each was synced to the Echo network, waiting for a single command. Now that moment had come. As Zorvak's fleet advanced, human squadrons darted out from the asteroid belt, not to attack, but to lure. They fired decoy signals, mimicked distress calls, and left false trails leading toward Saturn. The Council took the bait. Believing the main human force was regrouping near the gas giant, Zorvak ordered half his fleet to pursue. That was the mistake. When the Council ships entered the densest part of Saturn's rings, President Diane Foster gave the order from Lunar Command. Lisa Moran, watching from Colorado, pressed a single key, and the rings came alive. The resonance charges activated all at once, not with explosions, but with a pulse that twisted local spacetime. Gravity warped. Navigation systems failed. Ships that had flown for centuries suddenly found themselves tumbling, colliding, or vanishing into temporary rifts. Dozens were lost in seconds. Others drifted, blind and broken, their crews screaming into dead comms. Zorvak roared in rage. He ordered the remaining fleet to tighten formation and push toward Earth. But the damage was done. His numbers were halved, his confidence shaken. Meanwhile, human forces struck from every shadow. The Vanguard, led by Commander Jake Harris, ambushed a repair convoy near Ganymede, disabling 3 support cruisers with phase disruptor bursts. The Sentinel, under Lieutenant Nina Cole, jammed the Council's emergency beacons, leaving stranded ships unable to call for help. And the newly launched Defiant led a swarm of drone fighters, small, fast, and packed with microcharges that harried the flanks of the main fleet like hornets. On Mars, orbital foundries worked non-stop. New Echo cores rolled off the line every hour. Civilian engineers, many of them teenagers who had grown up watching Council ships loom in the sky, now built weapons that could blind those same ships. Schools became coding hubs. Farms powered shield generators. The entire planet had become a single machine of defense. But the true turning point came not from weapons, but from trust. Species that had once served the Council in silence now acted. A Khazari freighter diverted from its route to deliver coolant isotopes to the Odyssey. A Xanthari scientist, disgusted by Zorvak's brutality, leaked the command codes for the Council's shield harmonics. Even a small mining clan from the Outer Rim sent a message. We stand with Earth. This was the Council's greatest blind spot. They believed power came from control, but Earth showed that power also came from connection. As the battle raged near Jupiter, Maya Rodriguez executed Operation Firebreak, Phase 2. Using the white noise protocol at full strength, she flooded the entire sector with quantum static. For 3 critical minutes, the Council fleet was deaf, dumb, and blind. In that window, Ryan Ellis led a strike group straight through their center, targeting the flagship's core relay. The Odyssey slipped past burning hulls, its echo drive humming. Maya fired a single disruptor shot, not at the ship's armor but at the joint between its primary and secondary power conduits. The pulse traveled through the system like a virus, overloading every circuit it touched. The flagship went dark. Zorvac, trapped in his command throne, watched his screens die one by one. Outside, human ships moved like ghosts through the wreckage of his pride. On Earth, people gathered in streets, in shelters, in fields. They did not cheer. They held their breath. They knew this was not victory yet, but it was hope. And then, the impossible happened. A council vessel, not human, broke formation. It was a Xanthari cruiser, one of the oldest in the fleet. Instead of firing, it broadcast a single message on open channel. "We withdraw. This war is not ours." One by one, other ships followed. Kezari transports powered down weapons. Vorthan scouts turned away. Even some Vorthan captains, loyal to the old ways of honor, refused to burn a world that fought so cleanly, so bravely. Zorvac screamed orders, but no one listened. His armada was unraveling. By the time the dust settled, the Council had lost over 60 ships. Earth had lost none. The Jupiter line held. The inner system was safe. And for the first time, the galaxy saw Earth not as a target, but as a force. Back on the Odyssey, Ryan looked at Maya. She was exhausted, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes were bright. "They'll come back," she said. "Maybe," he replied. "But next time they'll know we're not alone." And as the human fleet regrouped among the rings of Saturn, something new stirred in the dark. Not fear, not anger, but respect. The kind that cannot be demanded, only earned. The tide had turned. Part 5. The silence that followed the battle near Jupiter was heavier than any explosion. The Council's great armada, once a symbol of unstoppable power, now drifted in broken pieces across the outer system. Warlord Zorvac's flagship floated dark and lifeless, its command deck sealed by emergency protocols. He had refused to surrender, and in the end his pride had buried him. The remaining Council ships that had not defected or fled now hovered at the edge of detection range, waiting, not to fight, but to see what Earth would do next. They expected vengeance. They expected demands. They expected the same cruelty they had shown others. But Earth did none of those things. Instead, a single ship emerged from lunar orbit. It was not armed, not cloaked, not even fast. It was a modified science vessel, painted white with a single blue circle on its hull, the symbol of Earth. On board were President Diane Foster, Captain Ryan Ellis, and Dr. Carl Dixon. They carried no weapons, only words. They broadcast a simple signal on all frequencies. "We accept your truce request. Send your highest-ranking survivor. We will meet at neutral ground, Lunar Station Alpha." The Council hesitated. Trust was not part of their nature, but they had no choice. Their fleet was crippled, their unity shattered, and across 100 worlds, whispers of Earth's mercy had already spread. So they came. The emissary who stepped onto the lunar docking bay was not Kalar, nor any warlord. It was Elder Majan, the oldest and wisest voice in the High Council. Her species aged slowly, and she had seen empires rise and fall. She walked with a cane of polished starwood, her eyes tired but sharp. Behind her stood 2 silent guards, their weapons deactivated by mutual agreement. Diane Foster met her at the airlock. No handshake, no bow, just 2 leaders standing on equal ground. "You could have destroyed us," Majan said, her voice like dry leaves. "We could have," Diane replied. "But we are not conquerors. We never were." They moved to the observation lounge where Earth hung in the viewport like a jewel of blue and green. For a long time no one spoke. Then Carl Dixon laid out the terms. Full sovereignty for Earth and all its colonies. Immediate withdrawal of all Council forces from the solar system. Reparations in the form of technology, medical aid, and ecological restoration for damage caused during the attempted annexation. And one final demand: a permanent human seat on the Galactic Council. Jean did not argue. She had seen the battle logs. She had heard the reports from defectors. She knew that denying Earth a seat would only breed more resistance across the galaxy. Worse, it would make the Council look weak. not because they lost, but because they refused to learn. You ask for equality, she said, but equality must be earned by more than weapons. We earned it by not using them when we could have, Diane said. We treated your wounded. We freed your slaves. We gave your broken ships safe passage home. Tell me, what species in your council has done that after being threatened with extinction? Mijan looked at the planet below. She saw cities lit by night, oceans untouched by war, forests still breathing. She saw a people who had every reason to hate, and chose not to. The negotiations lasted 3 days. There were tense moments. Old wounds flared, but in the end, the Council agreed to every term. Earth would be recognized as a sovereign interstellar power. The annexation order was erased from all records, and Diane Foster would become the first human counselor. On the day of signing, representatives from dozens of species watched from orbit. Some came out of duty, others out of curiosity. A few, like the Khazari and the Zenthari reformists, came to show support. As Diane placed her hand on the treaty stone, a glowing crystal that recorded oaths in living light, she spoke not as a victor, but as a guardian. We do not seek to rule, she said. We do not seek to replace you. But we will never again be ignored, dismissed, or owned. We are Earth, and we belong here. The stone glowed brighter, sealing the pact. In the months that followed, the solar system began to heal. Council ships helped clear debris from the Jupiter line. Human engineers shared echo drive schematics with allied species, freely without hidden codes or backdoors. Schools on Mars began teaching galactic languages. Embassies opened on the moon not just for diplomacy, but for exchange. Captain Ryan Ellis retired from active command but stayed on as an advisor. Maya Rodriguez led a new academy to train pilots from across the Alliance. Jake Harris and Nina Cole took the Vanguard on a peace mission to worlds once crushed under Council rule, offering aid and solidarity. Carl Dixon and Lisa Moran returned to Colorado not to build weapons, but to design tools, clean energy cores, medical resonators, communication arrays that could link even the smallest colony to the greater network. Their work was no longer secret. It was shared. And Diane Foster took her seat in the High Council chamber on Xelthar. She did not wear robes or carry a staff. She wore the same simple suit she had worn on the day of the ultimatum. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. She pushed for reforms. No more forced annexations, no more resource seizures, no more silence from the weak. Some counselors resisted, but many listened, because they remembered the day Earth struck back, not with rage but with resolve. Across the galaxy, young beings began to tell a new story. Not of empires or invasions, but of a small blue world that refused to kneel. They spoke of how the Galaxy Council never expected Earth to strike back, and how that mistake changed everything. And on quiet nights when the stars shone clear, people on Earth would look up and smile. Not in fear, not in pride, but in peace. Knowing they had not just survived, they had shown the universe what humanity truly was. Not a threat, not a subject, but a partner.